Hi friends, wish you a very happy 2026 and I hope this new year brings you joy, good health and a lot of fun and creativity. Thank you for a very warm response on my last video of 2025. It helped me cross my 1000 subscriber mark. Today's video is going to be fun and it's a practice that I've started for a sketchbook each using the curated warm and the cool palettes of the Neocolor II. To me, a sketchbook is like a playground. It is for having fun, exploring freely, and creating without judgment. And over time, slowly but surely, you'll also see strengthening of fundamentals in sketching, drawing, color theory, and composition. So come along with me in this video where I share how I've started the first warm palette sketchbook, and together we're going to turn a new page in the cold palette sketchbook. I would highly encourage you to start a sketchbook with a medium of your choice, whether it's color pencils, markers, oil pastels, crayons or more, and let your creativity flow. So grab your tea, coffee or your favorite beverage and let's get started. So before I dive into these two sketchbooks and how I'm going to use them with the Neocolor II, I just want to share some quick updates on how I'm using the current sets of the Neocolor II, the 3 individual tin sets that I have. So 2 simple actions that I've made it just a little bit more efficient while using these tins. I've just used the initials of W, P and C with a permanent marker on the 3 tins for the warm palette, for the extended primary palette and for the cool palette. So it just makes it easier to identify which tin is which palette without having to constantly open and check. Now if you've seen my earlier video where I'd unboxed these and swatched them out, you'd remember that there was a sleeve on each of these tin boxes unique to each palette. So I had saved that and I have now stuck it on the inside of each of these tins. And the way it helps is that when you're using multiple palettes and the crayons are mixed up while you're using them, it's just easier to put them back in the same order by referring to this quick guide that you have on the sleeve. And the next time when you're ready to use them again, they are all set up in the right way and the correct order. It just helps save time, at least for me. So these 2 actions have helped me just be a little bit more efficient with the Neocolor when I'm using them. Now coming to these 2 sketchbooks. I picked these up from a local art store in Goa, in Panjim, and it's called Artorium and they're really well stocked. And this is a sketchbook which is a A4 size. It's 150 GSM, so initially I was a little worried about whether it would be able to hold the activation of Neocolor II with water. We'll see how it's been going so far in this sketchbook. It is basically manufactured by the Janta Book Manufacturing Depot and they have a long-standing history in India as one of the pioneers of producing notebooks and other scholastic stationery products. And this sketchbook is called the Decor Sketchbook. It is made from acid-free cartridge paper. It has 112 pages or 56 sheets. And it has this beautiful cloth finish covers and it comes in a couple of other different colors too. I just loved this green, so I picked it up. And of course it has a elastic band closure, which is not too tight, not too loose. And they say it's ideal for fine liners, charcoal markers, dry mediums, ink pen and light washes. It's predominantly going to be my warm palette focused sketchbook. I started to use from the second page onwards, and this is what I've been trying out with the warm palette. And you'll see that I've fairly used up some of the colors that I've been using a lot from the set itself. So the lightest and the darkest colors tend to get used the most, I'm realizing. So this is Sahara Yellow and Umber. I've started out with references from books of other artists, where I'm also learning on the theory of watercolors or oils. And they're going to look very different when done with Neocolor and with a limited palette, especially a warm palette. But the challenge for me is to see how to still try and make sense of a composition. So let's look, for example, at Hazel Harrison's composition of the trees here. And I loved also the negative space that was left for the sense of light coming through these trees or a path in a forest. And I wanted to extend that into basically the Neocolor II warm palette and see how best I could represent the same feeling. I have also used some white gouache to create the highlights on the barks of the trees where I couldn't preserve some of the white space or the white paper. And for example, in this tree, I could preserve some of the white paper when using the Neocolor II, but for some of these, I wanted the highlights to be stronger, and I used gouache, white gouache, to just paint over the Neocolor II after it was activated with water. This is from a photograph that I took when visiting the Sukkur Plateau in Goa with a couple of friends who had taken us there. And it was a beautiful blue sunny morning, and the sky was blue, the tree was green with a few bare branches, and the earth was a warm yellow. But again, the colors that I chose to recreate this is using this palette, and I wanted to capture the feeling of that day with a luminous sky and the branches of the tree, which was the dominant subject in the photograph. This is a recreation of the Secret Garden, which is a composition and a painting by Norman Long, and this is the book on oils, which he has authored. I've used this as an inspiration to recreate this with this palette, but you'll also see some greens here, which I leaned into from the extended primary set. So I did use some of the emerald green, and I think I also did dip into the greens here from the darker greens from the Cool palette. Now this is a composition again originally done in watercolors. It's Sunflower's composition by Hazel Harrison, while of course done in watercolors. In fact, I had created the sky using the Cool palette and the blues in it, but I just felt it was breaking the flow of my warm palette sketchbook. And what I did was, after I had laid down the blues in the background, I did come back in and use some burnt sienna and ochres and yellows to give a brick wall effect in the background. The next compositions are again from similar references. I love this one, and this is called Late Autumn by David Curtis, and this is a original painting of Clumber Park, and it's a beautiful oil painting. There are a few elements here, like a person riding on a bicycle here, which I've kind of let go when trying to recreate this. And the idea was to again stay within the warm palette and recreate the feeling of a late autumn, a dark woody forest. So this composition originally is inspired from Jeremy Galton's White Chrysanthemums. This is from the book on the Encyclopedia of Oil by the same author and artist. Again, for the background, I basically used my Himi gouache black so that I don't end up using a lot of the umber from this set. This also has some white gouache painted on top of the petals to bring in a bit of light and shadows and a sense of dimension on the flowers. Now, how is this paper handling the Neocolor 2 as a dry medium and as a wet medium when activated with water as well as gouache? I think it's doing really well. I expected this 150 GSM paper to start tearing off in places probably and buckling much more or warping much more than what it is. But I must say I'm very happy with the quality of the sketchbook, and it's perfect for a daily sketchbook that you want to just have fun in, explore with colors, compositions, and just use a couple of media. And I can't wait to fill more of these pages with this warm palette and probably dip in a little bit into the other palettes of Neocolor 2 also. This is from a brand called Anupam, and it's a proudly Indian brand. And this is 370 rupees for the 80 pages. I chose this as a different orientation, which is a landscape orientation as compared to this one. And both of them are A4 size as such. And this one has a slightly off-white tone to the paper, and it's more like a natural white actually. It's lovely. So I have these two sketchbooks now, one with a more white tone to it and one which is a little warmer. And I'm thinking of using the cool palette of the Neocolor II with this sketchbook. And I think it'll be a nice backdrop to create some nice cool compositions. So next I'm thinking, why not start this cool palette right away with y'all in this video. So I'm going to do my first composition here on this sketchbook, and I thought of painting this beautiful flowers that my friend bought me from Jaipur while she was visiting here. And this is a beautiful vibrant piece of pottery with a bright yellow as the main color, and with some philodendron leaves. Now the challenge is, since I'm going to be using just the cool palette of Neocolor 2, there is no yellow in this. I can of course borrow from the extended primary palette, but let me take the challenge of not using yellow, but to recreate the composition just using the cold palette. And I may use the pink and the warm red to substitute the color, the main color of the body itself. So let's get started. So I've basically sketched this out lightly with the lightest colors in the set, and just outlined some of the big shapes. And now I'm going to start filling this in. think that's about it. So now I'm going to just bring out that bowl of water that we have. And I'll start activating it from the top down so that my hand does not get in the way and drag the wet paint across the page. So this is vermilion and it's actually a warm color, and I think they give it in this cool palette set basically to help bring a contrast. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this little demo and you get a sense of how I'm going to be using these two sketch pads with the Neocolor II for my warm and the cool palette. Hope you found it useful, and if you liked it, do give it a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, do consider subscribing if you like the content, and don't forget to press the bell icon for notifications on my upcoming videos. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, happy painting!